Welcome to the Self-Growth Nerds podcast. I'm your host, Marie, a courage coach, creative soul, and adventure seeker. Since through hiking the Pacific Crest Trail in 2019, I'm on a mission to help you embrace your most confident self so you can achieve your dreams too. If you're eager for deep conversations, big questions, and meaningful connections, join me on the quest to discovering how we can create a more magical and memorable life. Hello nerds! How are you? Today, I went kayaking. Yesterday, I thought, I don't have time to go on the river. I have so much work to do. But I realized that this is a sign that I really needed it. When I do go and move my body, even if it's just for half an hour, it makes so much of a difference and I see the world differently. Like I find everyone so much more beautiful and I believe that everyone's just doing their best and I smile at the people I meet on the street instead of like looking at my feet and being frustrated with how dirty the sidewalk is. When I went to the coffee shop, I ran into my neighbor. He is the perfect kind of weird. He's like 75 years old and I don't know if I've told you about them, him and his partner, before. They're so wonderful. They go for coffee in the morning and in the afternoon, it's their routine every day. Of course, they're retired. And then in between, they read books on their balcony or in the park and they just talk with everyone that they see. It's amazing. And so I ran into my neighbor and he said hello, but the way he says hello is like with his index pointing the sky as if he has a great idea. And he's like, "Hello! The best inventions are air conditioning, ice cream, and books." And he just keeps walking by, living his best life. And I love people like that who just speak their mind and not worry about what people think. They light up my day and make my life so much more magical. Today is the 30th episode. It's a celebration. Thank you so much for showing up with me every week to listen and learn. It's helpful for me to put my thoughts together and I hope it's been helpful for you too. I really share with you what I think matters most and what I believe can make our lives feel more joyful, more exciting and more loving, like a more connected and vibrant world. So if I manage to help you with that, then it's a success, complete success. So today's episode is going to be the 10 biggest takeaways from the first 29 episode. It's going to be a great episode that you can come back to if you want a refresher of the Self-Growth Nerds ethos. It's going to be like my manifesto. And then after that, I'm going on holiday, so perfect timing. Ollie and I don't really know where we're going. We just know we want to go cycling and kayaking. We're big fans of a spontaneous adventure. So there's not going to be episodes for 2 weeks, but I'm going to be back afterwards with lots of ideas for a season 2. And I cannot wait to be on vacation, but I also cannot wait to be back and keep sharing my heart and soul with you guys. All right, so let's get started with number 1. Number 1 is my version of personal growth. To me, personal growth is not about improving yourself. You're already enough as you are. I see personal growth as a kind of soul mining. It's about peeling off the outdated layers of conditioning to get to the core of who you are and operating from there as often as possible. So what I mean when I say outdated layers, I mean all the heavy coats of protection that you've put on as a child when you were not in charge of what was happening to you and you just needed to protect yourself. So these layers might be beliefs, they might be habits, they might be behaviors that you go to in a sort of default mode to protect yourself, but now They're just heavy and they slow you down on the way to your dreams. So it's about removing those layers slowly but surely to get to the core. And when I talk about the core, I mean the soul, I mean the inner knowing, your inner being, call it whatever you want to call it, your intuition. I think it's important to connect with that core because its default state is joy. And because it knows what is best for us. It knows the path that we're supposed to take. Think about children, especially babies. When their needs are met, they're just like a ball of joy. They smile and they're playful explorers of life. And I believe that if you're here, you also want to be a playful explorer of life. You want more joy in your day-to-day. You want to find pleasure in the small things. But for that to be possible, we've got to reconnect with the core, with our childlike sense of wonder and adventure. So that's number 1. Number 2 is about taking responsibility for your inner peace. You are now, as an adult, in charge of your own life. You are the expert of your own journey, and you know better than anyone else what is best for you. You know better than doctors, you know better than therapists, coaches, gurus, mentors, whatever, what is best for you when you're connected to your core. Sure, you can go and seek advice, but at the end of the day, you're always in charge of the final decision. So let's practice getting in tune with ourselves and not putting the responsibility of our well-being in the hands of other people. We need to be able to center back to ourselves and ask, what do I need right now? What do I really want? What do I think is the best idea? And stop waiting for others to give us answers and stop waiting for others to fulfill our needs. We are in charge. Imagine you are the farmer of a cornfield and you want to grow the best corn in your corner of the world. You make sure the soil is rich. You make sure the crops are watered. And you make sure that people just don't go walking through your field stepping on your corn, right? Even if they tell you oh, well, your field is in the middle of the way, that's where I'm going, and it would be so much easier for me to walk through your field than to go around it. You don't just go, oh, okay, I guess that's fine. Just go ahead. Step all over my corn. No, you don't do that. You can set boundaries and make sure that you take care of yourself first. Remember that circumstances are never to blame. People are never to blame, situations neither. Circumstances create thoughts and thoughts create your feelings. So if you're feeling down, it's not because of a thing or a person. It's because of your thoughts about that thing or person. So make sure to interrogate your thoughts before taking the easy road of blaming the outside world. Okay? You don't have to let the outside world affect you as much as it did in the past. You get to cultivate your inner peace. All right. Now, number 3. Don't let your primitive brain lead the way. So don't believe everything your brain tells you. Like I was saying, your thoughts create your feelings. So make sure that you choose thoughts that serve you, that are empowering for you. Remember that your brain's job is to protect you from the unknown, and you are here because you want to explore the unknown. So there's going to be a freak out, but expect the freak out. Let the freak out happen without letting it take charge of the M. Without letting the freak out lead the way. Okay, your brain can really be an asshole, but it's just trying to protect you. It's doing its job. Nothing's broken. It's just doing what it is there to do. A few weeks ago, it was my dad's 60th birthday. By the way, I gave a speech and I cried my eyes out all through the speech. Too much love to put into words. But the example I wanted to give you is that There was about 32 people in the room, and my brain kept telling me, "Are you sure everyone's having a good time? Are you sure everyone's having a good time?" And I would tell my brain, we are not responsible for other people's feelings. Then my brain would calm down, but just for a few minutes, and then it would come back. "Are you sure everyone's having a good time?" And I just repeated, we are not responsible for other people's feelings. If people are not having a good time, it's their own responsibility, not ours. Notice how instead of listening to my brain and arguing with it, I talk to it. Okay, I don't let it lead the way and ruin my day. And another example would be what's happening in terms of climate change, all the fires and the chaos that this is causing. It's normal to be sad, and it's normal to feel anxious. We've got to let those emotions be there. But at the end of the day, we also have to cultivate an optimistic way of thinking. Okay, our primitive brain is going to be pessimistic and have thoughts like we are all doomed, there's nothing we can do, it's too late. But these kind of thoughts, all they do is make us want to stay in bed and give up before even trying. So, if you care about taking action and being part of the change, which I know that you are, then you need to think about how you think. This sounds funny, but you have to notice how you think and make sure that you choose thoughts that are optimistic. And being optimistic is not the same as being positive. Being positive comes with like a kind of innocence, whereas being optimistic is when you are aware of what's going on and you are focused not on the problem, but on the potential solution. You have hope that we can find a way to make it work. And you can argue all day and all night about your stats and your facts being right and being true. If they make you feel desperate and hopeless, then it doesn't matter. You need to switch your perspective and find thoughts to hold on to. Intentionally choose thoughts that are gonna make you want to get up and take action. All right? Number four is being a compassionate friend to yourself. How you talk to yourself is everything. If you tell yourself things like, "Oh, stop being so negative," or "Stop being so anxious, you should have understood by now," then you are slowing down your progress. And I know this is counterintuitive. We want to grow, we want to get better. But then if we shame ourselves for not getting better fast enough, we slow that growth. Okay, so we have to be careful how we talk to ourselves. We need to be our own best ally. Imagine what you would do if you knew that whatever happened, you'd have your own back. There are so many things that we don't dare do because they scare us. But what scares us is not what might happen if we fail. What scares us is what we might tell ourselves if we fail. But what if you promised yourself that you were going to be brave, that you were going to be bold, and that if it doesn't work, if you fall flat on your face, if your idea ends up being a bad one, you're going to have your own back and you're going to step back up and try again. Be kind and curious and funny with yourself when you make a mistake. Don't add any unnecessary suffering. Life is already a big challenge. So we don't want to whip ourselves when we find the challenge difficult. It's just supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be this way. And just take it with a grain of salt and tell yourself things like, "Oh, look at you. You've tried. You've failed. That's okay. Just brush it off." Just like we tell children, brush it off. Try again. It's not a big deal. And if anyone thinks it's a big deal, It's their problem, not yours. Recently, I was having a conversation with friends of mine, and I said something inappropriate that I'm not proud of. I instantly felt ashamed and regretful that I had said that. And in the past, I would have retreated, isolated myself, and beat myself up for saying this thing. But instead, I decided to apologize and forgive myself. And there's so much power in that. I was so honest in my apology. They received it, and then I forgave myself and moved on. So that's what I suggest that you do. Do your best and forgive. And do yourself and forgive again. And if you need to do that multiple times a day, then let it be this way. This morning, my downstairs neighbor, not the one I told you about earlier, but the other one, called me, and she was really angry because I took my compost out, but it had been a long time since I took it out, so there was lots of bugs. And after the people that leave with the compost, after they put the container back on the sidewalk, she said that it was really gross and it stank and there was lots of bugs, and she's on the first level, so there was lots of bugs on her balcony, and she went and washed my compost container. She took it upon herself to wash my gross compost container, and she was really annoyed, which I completely understand. So I apologized and we hung up the phone, and afterwards I felt some shame, but again, I decided to take it with a grain of salt and forgive myself. And I even thought, oh, maybe I can, after recording this podcast, I can go to like one of the little local shops and buy a special, like, yummy smelling soap for her as a gift. Anyway, so do your best and forgive yourself. Number 5, create change from the inside out. So what I mean by that is I see many of you and many of me, because I'm not perfect, wanting to take action in order to change. So you've got a problem, like feeling a lack of focus in your life, and you think about the actions you can take to fix your problem, like setting up a routine, a morning routine that's going to help you start your day well and feel more focused throughout the day. The mistake I see many of us making is focusing on the action, but forgetting the thoughts and the feelings behind this action. So if the thoughts and the feelings supporting the action are not in line with who you want to be, the action is going to be pointless. If the goal of the action is to make you feel more focused, but that the thoughts and feelings that motivate this action is, oh, I'm only going to be worthy once I wake up early, then the action is motivated by self-loathing and it's never going to stick. Your core is never going to stick to an action that doesn't come from self-love. So when you want to take an action, interrogate your reason. Make sure your reason is one that you love. We often have the tendency to think, oh, once I get up early, or once I'm successful, once I have a partner, once I have this kind of friend, then I'm going to feel good. But that's not how it works. It's the other way around. You have to assess how you want to feel in the future and bring it back to the present and ask yourself, how can I feel like this now? And the answer is always by changing your thoughts. It's easy to go straight to actions because they seem easy to control. They are tangible. They can be put in our calendar. But thoughts come first, so don't neglect thoughts. Also, don't neglect action. I encourage you to take action. Just make sure it comes from a good place, from a place that serves you. All right, number 6. Motivation is inspiration. Many people tell me, oh, I start something and I never finish because I lose my motivation along the way, and they get really frustrated with that. But what happens is a lack of inspiration. In order for you to do something, you have to be inspired by why you're doing it. And if the answer is not compelling enough, you're never going to do it. You're always going to prefer comfort over effort if your reason for efforting is not compelling, is not meaningful. Look at what you do instead of doing this thing that you want to stick to. Let's say there's a habit you want to stick to, but you don't. Observe what you do instead and ask yourself, why is this more important to me? And don't tell me, oh, it's not more important. I hate that I do this. That's not true. There is a reason why you default to this activity instead, and you've got to be able to put your finger on it. Is it because you're comfortable there? Is it because it keeps you feeling safe? Is it because you are protected from mistakes? What is it that makes you go that default route? What are you protecting yourself from? And then turn to this habit that you want to stick to and go get to work making your reason more interesting. Make sure it's a reason that speaks to you. So if you want to exercise more, make sure that your reason for moving your body is not one that belongs to somebody else. Somebody else might lift some weights because they like the way it looks on their body, but maybe this is not your reason. Don't try to apply someone else's reason like a sticker to your heart. It's never going to be strong enough to motivate you to get moving, all right? But also, and this is a very important trap, don't expect doing something new and doing something hard to be easy, okay? What I mean by that is you're not always going to feel inspired in the moment. Do you think that when I was on the Pacific Crest Trail, I felt like walking every day? No, I didn't. But I was motivated to do it because my bigger vision was meaningful enough to me. So don't sit there waiting for inspiration, okay? Sometimes you've got to sit with your resistance and do what you have to do despite your inner demons being there. I remember telling my coach recently about how I had a hard time committing to physical activity because my brain was like, well, we've hiked the PCT. We've done enough physical activity for a whole lifetime. And she didn't take any of my bullshit. She was like, cut the crap. Stop talking about the PCT. It doesn't define your future. It's in your past. Stop waiting for physical activity to feel as compelling and seem as epic as your PCT was. It's never going to be. But why is it important to you? I said, well, because I don't want to be in pain when I'm old. I want to be able to move and feel good in my body. And she said, all right, well, pick 30 minutes a day and get moving. Stop waiting for it to feel compelling in the moment. That's not what it's about. Life is not always gonna feel like a game of, what's the expression? Life is not always gonna feel like a box of chocolate. I don't know what the expression is, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. We think we should wait for inspiration to strike before we write our novel, but it's the other way around. We need to sit at the computer and write crappy stuff and be there, show up for ourselves, even when we don't feel like it. And then inspiration is going to be our reward. Just like we need to put our shoes on, go outside, take a run, and inspiration is going to come eventually. It's going to come perhaps not during the run, but it's going to come after, and it's going to allow you to have the energy to pursue your dreams. And it's the same thing with everything else. Move through the resistance for the love of your bigger vision. And this takes us to number 7. Purpose is not a destination, it's an aligned direction. Your purpose is not something outside of you that you need to go on a quest to find like we see in video games. It's the direction that you go in when you're tapping into your true self and letting it guide your way into the world. It's easy. Your purpose is the path that you would naturally take if there was no fear in the way. You live in line with your purpose when you do something from a place of peace as opposed to people pleasing or attempting to fit in. You don't have to have your purpose figured out before you live in your purpose. And I know that sounds weird, but living in your purpose just means following what lights you up, what brings you joy. And I can hear some of you being cynical and thinking, well, I cannot just always do what brings me joy. Otherwise, I would be on vacation all day, every day. I know you've got some responsibilities, but you've got to trust the universe and trust that if you can follow the joy a little bit more every day and sprinkle what you love in the small moments, then one morning you're gonna wake up to a life that feels so much more personal and self-led and purposeful than you could have ever imagined. I know we want to change everything from like one day to the next. We want to find our purpose, and we believe that once we've found our purpose, then we're just gonna be fixed. Our problem is gonna be fixed, and we're just gonna have to change everything the next day, and suddenly we're gonna be happy. But that's not how it's going to go. It's a process in the small steps. So practice being okay with the small steps. And believe me, I'm an impatient person, and I wish I could just be there. One of my deck of oracle cards that I love, the Starseed oracle cards, I've gotten the same card so many times, and that card is wait. It's the card for those of us who are impatient and do not trust that while we take steps towards our dream, stuff is going on in the background, like magical stuff is going on in the background, like the universe is working for us, putting things in place for our deepest desires to come true. We've got to dream, let ourselves dream big, and then bask in those dreams and take actions in that direction and be okay with not being there yet and believing that there is like a source energy and something bigger than ourselves that's helping us. Number 8, live in your dream world. Notice what lights you up, like I was saying, and daydream about the world you want to create for yourself. Not just on a small scale, like what kind of house do you want to live in, what kind of clothes you want to wear, but also on a bigger scale. What kind of world do you want to see around you? How do people feel in that world? What do they do? How do they connect to each other? What do they look like? Do they dye their hair purple and wear capes? And live in that world now. Instead of focusing on what is, focus on what can be and live your life from there. And I know this concept can seem a bit confusing at first. I didn't understand it for the longest time, but I'm gonna give you an example and hopefully this will help you click. So if you have thoughts like, oh, I want to live in a world where the community is tightly knit and people are kind to each other, and you get frustrated about living in a big city and how people ignore each other on the sidewalk, start smiling at people on the sidewalk. It's like this classic, I think it was Gandhi quote, be the change you want to see in the world. Sounds so abstract. I heard this 1,000 times without really understanding it. You have to be brave and bold enough to move through life and embody the change that you want to make. So I want to live in a world where people love each other, where there is no hate and judgment and blame. So what I do is I do my best to talk with strangers, give them the benefit of the doubt, smile at the people that I cross paths with, ask questions, get interested. Even if, and especially if they're from a world that I don't understand, I always want to seek to understand them better rather than to make myself understood. And sometimes I forget about this. I'm not perfect at all. But when I'm my highest self, that's how I want to approach life. That's why I'm against all the movements that support hate. I don't want to hate on white men. I don't want to hate on the police. I don't want to hate on drug dealers. I don't want to hate on politicians. I don't want to hate on any humans because to me, this does not help. I know that many of our systems are broken, but I want to think about the solution and empower humans to create better systems, more inclusive ones, without making them feel ashamed of what they've done so far. I think that shame makes you want to run back to the cave of safety or fight. And that's not what we need right now. We need to create a world where people feel seen and heard and safe to be themselves. So many problems come from the fact that humans grew up with so much trauma and they learned to hide their core, like I was saying in the beginning, and to put on heavy coats of protection. And it's those layers of protections that are making bad decisions. If we remove those layers, the core of human beings is good. That is what I believe. Imagine the kind of world that we would live in. Everyone was loved how they deserved to be loved. So that's the work I'm here to do. And if you think the same way and if you're on a similar mission, welcome on board. All right. I got carried away here. Let's move to number 9. I almost cried for a moment. Number 9 is just make a decision. Your brain wants to keep you confused because as long as you're confused about what you want to do and where you want to go with your life, you don't take action, and your brain loves that. Every time you stay indecisive, your brain wins. Your brain's job is to get you to stay inside the cave and not to put yourself out there. But doing something new and being courageous and chasing purpose is scary. Saying, here's what I want and I'm gonna go get it and I'm gonna do everything in my power to make it happen is scary. It's like being naked on a hook with everyone watching. But the idea that you need to make the right decision is wrong. It's just a trap that your mind is setting for you to fall into and to delay that moment where you're going to jump and fly and maybe fall on your face. But who cares? It's better to fall on your face than to just sit and do nothing and grow old with no stories to tell, looking back on your life, wishing that you would have taken a bet on your ideas. Lastly, take imperfect action. That's number 10. And remember that emotions are a tunnel. When we do something brave, what happens is we start stepping into the tunnel of awful emotions. Let's say we feel like we're going to die and it seems unbearable. So we turn away and run the other way. We get out of the tunnel and we give up. We quit what we're doing because the feelings are unbearable. Or we buffer, but buffering is the same thing as quitting. Buffering is avoiding the feelings and procrastinating instead of moving forward. What if I told you you could move through any emotion and be okay on the other side. If you believe that, then you can accomplish anything. If you practice sitting in your emotions until they pass, then you have one more evidence that they're temporary and they're not gonna kill you no matter how nauseous they make you feel. And I know that feelings feel physical. They can get so intense, like you feel like you might puke or faint or have a panic attack. But feelings cannot kill you. They can only give you the impression that they will. And on the other side of that is peace and pride. But yes, it is a learning curve, and it can be a steep learning curve to stay in the feeling and to nurture yourself, love yourself through the hard emotion. It's gonna be okay. Talk to your inner child. It's gonna be okay. Emotions are created by my thoughts. Thoughts are just words in my brain. I don't have to believe all the thoughts in my brain. I'm going to be okay. I'm safe. And of course, if you have a hard time dealing with that, and I mentioned panic attacks earlier, if you deal with panic attacks and anxiety that keeps you unable to function, then please seek help with a therapist or with a doctor. I'm just here to remind you that you can learn to move through the tunnel and accomplish so much. It's a practice and it takes patience and repetition, but you can do it and you're gonna be so proud on the other side. Okay, that's it for today. I don't know how long it's been, but I know I was supposed to go to the shops and I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna let you also go. I hope you're gonna have a good time and you're not gonna miss me too much while I'm on holiday. Please, if the first season of this podcast has been helpful to you, let me know. I want to hear from you so that I don't feel like I'm talking to my screen and having like a relationship with my mic. I want to know how it's impacting you to feel motivated to keep going. I love when you drop into my DMs or when you email me to tell me about the insights that you had. And also, please, if you feel so inclined, leave a review. This helps people find the podcast. So if you think what I'm teaching here can help others, leave a review or share the podcast to your loved ones. That would mean the world to me, and I think we can all together work on making the world a more loving place where we feel like it's okay to make mistakes because people are gonna help us back up. All right, have a beautiful rest of the summer, and I will see you soon. Lots of love. Bye-bye. You just listened to the Self-Growth Nerds podcast. Make sure to subscribe and to find me on Instagram at Self-Growth Nerds. If you want individual help developing the confidence to create a more meaningful and exciting life, visit selfgrowthnerds.com today to learn how. Finally, I want to thank my friend Etienne Galano for editing this, and I want to thank you, kind-hearted souls, for growing into your truest, most courageous selves every day and making this world a better, more beautiful place. My name is Marie, and I will talk to you next week.